I used to do all of my planning in my head, but with notes and visuals all over the place, just kind of like random notes on my desk, but not anymore. Now I use Adobe Firefly to plan my videos, and that means that all of my visuals and my notes are all in one place. And yes, this video is sponsored by Adobe Firefly. I'm an Adobe Firefly ambassador, but let me get into it and show you Firefly Boards and how you can use this for your ideation of your content creation or whatever project it is you're going to be working on. The first thing you're going to want to do is to actually create a board. Now, what a board is an area where you're going to be able to collect all of your ideas in one place. So we're going to come to the home page and you'll see this option here to create a board. Now, when you come into Adobe Firefly, you'll notice that it looks very blank. There's nothing on here. We've not added any of our content first. So what I like to do is I like to come up first and actually add my artboards. Now what this is an area within Adobe Firefly that will collect all of those items, and you can choose to download them, but it kind of keeps them kind of like visual for me, visual in one place. You don't have to add an artboard, but I like to, and that's where I can then choose to, you can choose to highlight it, you can choose to duplicate it, and then we've got our 3 artboards. Now if you come along and highlight all of these 3 artboards, you can see here we can actually then add a separation. If we choose to, we can resize them, and we've got all sorts of things we can do here. We can change the background color of these items. I like to keep mine as a white background, and you can choose to align them, and again you can then choose to download the artboards and it'll download those as a single visual. But that's kind of like getting started with creating an artboard. You can then just come in and name your artboard where it says artboard 1 and 2. You can overtype that. But let me now show you one of my artboards that I used for the ideation on one of my recent videos where I was using Flux 2.0 and demonstrating that inside of Adobe Firefly. If you've not watched that video, I'll link it up here for you and at the end of the video. But inside of Adobe Firefly, you can see I've created my artboards. I renamed them where I've got kind of like planning ideas, and on this first kind of like artboard, I kind of like to ask myself, why would someone click to watch this video? And I kind of like think about like what the video is about. I then like on this first board, I like to add the video title ideas. These might not be final ones. It'll depend on some of the scripting and some of the other things that I talk about and other programs that I use to come up with video title ideas. But these are kind of like ideas that I've come up with first of all. And also then we've got the hook ideas. So the first kind of like line that I deliver when I'm actually creating the videos, this is kind of like the hook idea and those first lines that I deliver. I kind of then start playing about with what it's going to look like visually, and this helps me kind of like think about what it's going to look like when I'm recording my screen and how I'm going to navigate around it. And then I've said that in this particular video I want to talk about and think about the real use of these items that I'm demonstrating, not just the actual features. So that's kind of like adding notes in there for me, and you can do the same sort of thing where you can add in notes about the reason that you're creating this content, and it kind of like helps you get started. And a lot of times these things live in our heads and don't go any further, but I feel that by actually even creating that first board, it then helps me be more consistent. It helps me come up with kind of like, right, where do I go from here? And in this particular case, I then spent a lot of time coming up with images and thinking about what it was that I wanted to show around these images. So in this first example, and as I say, if you've watched the video, you'll understand this. We've got like the consistency or across variations of the video. So we had like the special breakfast, or the breakfast special should I say. We updated it to say lunchtime menu specials. I then looked at changing the prompt a little bit, but I then went back to the other one and added in this cream jug. We also looked at then kind of like exploring thumbnails, and these are all the visuals that I created for that video to show and explain and make sure that what I'm actually showing and helping you guys understand is what's something that I've actually played about with and done consistently for a while before I just jump into the computer. So you can see here again, I'm testing the signage, and this is where you can start talking about what teachable moments that you want to have in your video or within your content. What are those key learning points that you're putting across, or those struggles, or those kind of like things that you want to portray in your video or your Instagram reel, whatever it is that you're wanting to create. For me, as I say, this helps turn visual mess into a teachable walkthrough. I've written it down there, and that's kind of like me kind of like reminding myself what it is that, as to why I'm creating this content, and adding those notes to your content and adding those notes to your mood boards, if you like. That's another word for them, if you like, is mood boards, or I can't think of the other things off the top of my head because I've not written them down. And then the actual third board, and this is what I like to call the payoff. What is the teachable moment that you as my viewer can, or member of the community, can take away from the video that I am creating? And in this particular case, it was kind of like I wanted to kind of like inspire you to then go and try some of the prompt ideas that I had in there. We talk about using JSON prompts and making those prompts more usable to create better images and consistent images. And we can see here that we have, you know, I wanted to kind of like be able to take away, or for you to take away, the realism, the consistency across variations, which is where we talked about, you know, we've got these items here where we had the signage that we changed from fresh baked pies to homemade pies, because fresh baked pies sounds strange in my head for some reason. And we then added that in to those items there. Again, we have the consistency of these two images where we changed them, and that was the takeaway. And these are the two images there that I wanted to kind of like have at the end and be like what it is that is the teachable moment, and make sure that I'm delivering on that in the video. I then wanted to kind of come up with ideas of what you can actually use Adobe Firefly for when it comes to using the Flux side, and it is things like thumbnails, cinematic stills, thinking about it from a, you know, if you were doing a photo shoot in a particular area, you might have gone and scouted an area beforehand, but also controlling those scenes and consistent lighting and signage. And that is ideation, another teachable moment inside of Adobe Firefly. If you've not used Adobe Firefly before, I'll put a link down below to a trial. It's part of a Creative Cloud membership as well, so if you do sign up to the Creative Cloud, you'll get access to Adobe Firefly. However, you can also choose to have it as a standalone product. If you've got any questions around using Adobe Firefly, Adobe Express, or any of the Adobe products, drop them comments down in the description below. In the description? You're not putting them in the description. I do the description. Anyway, keeping it real. Ask your questions in the comments. Click like, click subscribe. And until next time, thank you very much, and bye for now.